Hey everyone, I'm your host Adrian. We do content like this weekly, so hit the subscribe button and ring the bell to get notified. If you want more content like this, click the like button and please leave a comment. Thanks again for watching. Welcome everyone to today's Rupa Live class presented by Rupa University, the best way to learn about specialty lab work from industry experts. My name is Adrian Martinez, and as always, I will be your host for today's live class. Today we have a very, very special guest in Dr. Rob Silverman, here to dive into Immune Reboot, a guide to maximizing immunity, restoring gut health, and optimizing vitality. Before jumping in, a couple of quick housekeeping items. Everyone joining will be muted by default, but if you do have any questions, don't fret. Go ahead and use that Q&A button down in your menu bar, and we will host a live Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Immediately following the Q&A, yours truly will show you exactly how to order some of these tests from Rupa Health. And if you have to jump early, no worries. We are recording this session as we always do, and you'll be able to get access to it on rupauniversity.com within the coming days, as well as we will distribute it. And speaking of Rupa University, go ahead and check out rupauniversity.com to get access to all the previous sessions that we have done, including those with Dr. Silverman. And finally, a little surprise is that Dr. Silverman will be giving away 3 copies of his new book, Immune Reboot, to select audience members today. So be sure to keep an eye out for more to come on that, as well as a free 30-minute immunity consultation. So with that, let's go ahead and jump in. I'd like to introduce the man of the hour himself, Dr. Rob Silverman. Dr. Silverman is a chiropractic doctor, clinical nutritionist, national and international speaker, author of Amazon's #1 bestseller, Inside Out Health, founder and CEO of Westchester Integrative Health Center. He has a master's of science in human nutrition and 5 other designations in clinical nutrition. The ACA Sports Council named Dr. Silverman Sports Chiropractor of the Year in 2015. Dr. Silverman is on the advisory board for the Functional Medicine University and is a seasoned health and wellness expert on both speaking circuits and in the media. He is also chief clinical consultant for KBMO Diagnostics, one of our favorites here at Rupa, and the Acronia Laser Ltd, and holds science board positions with Nutriden. With over 23 years of clinical experience, Dr. Silverman is a thought leader in his field and practice and a frequently published author in peer-reviewed journals and other mainstream publications. Dr. Silverman was the principal investigator on 2 level 1 laser FDA studies, and be sure to check out his new book on be sure to check out his new Amazon best-selling book, Immune Reboot, which was just released this past December. And of course, I think most importantly, one of my favorite guests and peers in the functional medicine space. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Silverman. I will go ahead and let you take it from here.
Adrian, thanks so much. I really appreciate the time. I really appreciate all that you and Rupa Health does for the field. It's a one-stop shop for labs, and I'm a big proponent of labs because I always believe in testing and not guessing. So that said, let's dig right in. And I've got my little clicker here, so don't think I'm holding a gun or anything of that nature. Want to talk about immunity. I think immunity clearly has taken the world by storm. It has been the conversation piece for the last 3 years. This book, this talk, this whole topic for me is very personal. It's personal in a sense that I live in New York and I'm right outside the city, and that's where COVID started in March of 2020. So 3 years later, we're here now. A lot of my friends and family really got sick, and to really combine and captivate the understanding of what immunity was a goal. On a true personal note, my mom got it. My mom was 90 at the time, and probably the worst case scenario is that it was so deleterious to her. She's lost the bulk of her memory. She doesn't even call me by my right name sometimes. She never has any time to talk to anybody. It was just, for me, cataclysmic. And I really didn't want anybody else to have any other family members that were damaged in that kind of way. So it really spurred me into the idea of learning all about immunity, and this book and this talk is a byproduct of all that. So I always like to start everything with a quote. I said many a time, you can't control the virus, but you can control the host. I can't control the air, but we can make the host, ourselves, our friends, our family, inhospitable for any kind of pathogen. So you can't control the virus, you can clearly control the host. We're talking about longevity. Dr. Harmon is doing a great job creating an idea of wellness and longevity. But for me, in addition to all that he says, you're only as young as your immune system. So me at 57, longevity looks great. As of today, I'm excited. One of my key components, adding to all the list of all the things, is to make sure my immune system is resilient, it's balanced, it's properly supported when it's all the above. So there's a tremendous interaction between COVID-19 and sarcopenia. As we've all heard, muscle mass is the currency of longevity, or muscle mass is the longevity organ. So there is a direct correlation between long COVID and sarcopenia. So long COVID raises inflammation, high levels of C-reactive protein, TNF alpha, interleukin, there's malnutrition. All that long COVID can lead to sarcopenia. And some of the reasons that it leads to sarcopenia is the fatigue. People don't feel the need to exercise. People are too tired to exercise. People were eating improper foods. People were just sedentary for too long a period of time. I had COVID, and I can tell you that, 4 days it was an issue. It was cold. I had a cold, if you will. But I can tell you, in day 5, I really wanted to say, hey, time to work out. I just didn't have the cortisol in the heart at that point, and I realized that I had to get around that. So I do understand the fatigue idea. Let's try that again. It's not supposed to happen on live webinars. Okay, we're going to have to go over here and make a little change. And here we go. COVID ups diabetes risk by 40%. That was a huge takeaway, in that people were so surprised that COVID led you down a path of blood sugar dysregulation. 40% was a dramatic increase. In addition to that, when you look at the back end, those who had high blood sugar level dysregulation also had a dramatic severity increase from COVID-19. So here it is. Why did we as a country, America, do so bad? I think that this particular slide, this study, really takes it away. When we compare ourselves to our Japanese counterparts, COVID cases were 12 times higher than in the US than our Japanese population. Death was 17.4 times higher in the US than the Japanese. Look at the prevalence of obesity. American men, 7.4 times greater. American women, 10 times greater. So what is that attributed to? Well, number one, our diet. Our American diet is called the SAD diet, the standard American diet. 1.5 times more saturated fat, less EPA, DHA, considerably less. And we consume more beef, almost 400% more beef. And our beef is mostly grain-fed beefs, and more sugar and sweeteners to the tune of 235%. Contrarily, our Japanese counterpart ate more fish, only a little more rice, and tea, especially green tea. Green tea, EGCG, has a medicinal effect. Nothing blocks the dock at the ACE2 receptor sites and protects our cells better than green tea. There was a study done in March of 2020 that spoke to that idea, and they put in many of the drugs that they're using now, and a lot of the nutrients that we've all found very health promoting. EGCG, green tea, really a truly secret sauce. Let's conversate. Let's talk. Let's recognize the possibility of a rise in autoimmunity and increased inflammatory status following recovery from COVID-19 infection. So when we dig in, we really look at immune reaction to this S1 protein. There was a production of cross-reactive antibodies and their reaction with many tissue antigens, such as GI and tight junctions. Stop right there. COVID causes leaky gut. You shed the virus through your gut. B cell expansion antibodies actually does not allow stromal and epithelial cells to come together and heal. So that said, my suggestion, one of the biggest testing takeaways is, hello, Mr. and Mrs. Patient, have you had COVID in the last 3 to 12 months? Yes, we need to test for leaky gut. We need to test your gut barrier panels. Skin is also one of the cross-reactive antibodies. Nervous system, thyroid, joint. So we have a gut to joint axis that's really highlighted now with post-COVID-19 issues, muscle and cellular components. So what is the trigger for autoimmunity? Well, 2 of the bigger triggers is the change in the microbiota, what's going on in your ecosystem in your gut, and that infection from COVID can damage your microbiota. Of course, there's genetics, nutrition, and of course, different toxins and chemicals. COVID-19 and autoimmunity. COVID-19 shifted from B cell activation in the germinal cells with lymph node follicles to extrafollicular B cell activation. So the takeaway is, and then let me put it in layman's terms, Extrafollicular B cell maturation may yield a more autoreactive B cell. So B cells come from the adaptive immune system. They're your antibodies, IgE, but the big ones are IgG, IgA, and IgM. IgA is secretory, IgM is early onset, and IgG has a half-life of 21 to 23 days. So you're going to see it approximately on day 21. That is the antibody that everybody talks about. This B cell maturation needs a certain period of time. When that period of time is shortened, because your immune system is not functioning well, your innate immune system isn't functioning well, and it calls on these B cells to come in early, those B cells are not trained. So essentially, when they're in the germinal cells, they're like teenagers studying to be soldiers. But when they're pulled into the lymph nodes, that's the interesting factor. They then are ready to attack what's supposed to be attacked. So this early B cell activation leads us down a slippery slope towards autoimmunity. So tying that all together, the development of SARS-CoV-2 and autoimmunity, there's an infection, there's genetic susceptibility in human subjects, molecular mimicry, which is that cross-reaction, that autoimmune issue, hyperstimulation of the immune system, cytokine storm, which was made so famous, fever, and autoantibody production. Autoantibodies attack parts of our body, leading us towards autoimmune diseases. So we always talk about immune system, but we really don't sometimes mention there's 3 lines of defense. Our first line, which is our barrier system, it protects the organism from coming in, prevents injury. That's our skin and our mucous membrane. Our skin is our largest organ in our body. Our mucous membranes also help. That said, stomach acids, digestive enzymes, beneficial bacteria, our digestive enzyme, it has been stated that the first time the outside world meets the inside world is when something goes through our digestive tract and gets through our small intestine. Think about the fact that we regurgitate or may have diarrhea. That's our digestive system's ability on protecting ourselves so it doesn't get absorbed through our small intestine and into our bloodstream and have an immune reaction, an inflammatory reaction. Taking it to the next step, once something gets absorbed, we have an innate immunity. Our innate immunity is our general defense. Everybody born has an innate immunity. There are what I like to refer to as our security guards of our immune system. They're 365, 24/7. They are the sentinels of our immune system. They are Marines. They engulf and destroy foreign invaders. Whereas now then you turn over to an acquired immunity. We call it an acquired or an adaptive or a specific defense because we acquired as we age. We have B and T cells. T cells come from our thymus. Our thymus is an interesting immune gland in that it's the first gland in our body to go through involution. It means it's the first gland in our body to shrink. And it does so, are you ready for this? In our teenage years. Our B cells come from our bone marrow. They produce those antibodies that I detailed previously. So T cells recognize and B cells categorize and catalog specific memories. There's some interesting things about that as we get a little deeper into the immune idea and immune cell. Cytokine storm versus cytokine drizzle. Cytokine storm is this overactivation of immune cells, but I will say this, I believe a lot of the American cytokine storm was based on the fact that we are pre-inflamed. So when we're pre-inflamed, we already have a certain amount of cytokines built up. It's kind of like water in a mug, and the water is the cytokines. We've already poured the water in. We got COVID. We poured some more water in and overflew on the mug. And that cytokine storm was predicated on that cytokine drizzle. That's that every day where we're eating foods we're allergic to, which we should test for. We're eating foods that we're sensitive to. We're eating pro-inflammatory foods, sugar, gluten, dairy, processed food, and the like. So a normal response or a normal immune response to infection is clearly inflammation. You will stimulate your innate immunity to your specific adaptive immunity. You'll have proper resolution and you'll make a memory of it so it doesn't happen again. That's the perfect response. Unfortunately, inflammation's too high in most Americans, interleukin 1, interleukin 6, and TNF alpha. You add interleukin 8 to that, and that is a great blood panel to start to see if somebody is pre-inflamed. So our immune response to COVID, inflammation starts high and doesn't shut down quick enough. Innate immunity, we have less innate immune cells. We also have specific immunity to virulence factors may not launch. Resolution is slow, and our memory is weak. So there were people who were vaccinated and or infected with COVID who did not produce antibodies or produced a low amount of antibodies. So let's take it to the next step. Viral infection leads to COVID, immune response to virus, which leads to cytokines, which leads to microbial metabolites, which lead to a disease. And the disease which most people suffer from, believe it or not, was is mitochondrial dysfunction. People feel poorly. And that's one of the biggest concerns in long COVID. We have all the detrimental disease issues, but the number one complaint in long COVID is without question fatigue, and that's coming from mitochondrial dysfunction. Mitochondria that's dysfunctional will stay longer in the body than mitochondria that is functional. Immune imprinting is a phenomenon in which the body preferentially repeats its immune response to the first variant it encountered, despite being altered to a new variant. So what am I saying? I'm saying that your immune system took a picture of COVID in 2020, and we are stuck with that picture, and we're having trouble because our immune systems are not resilient and not having the ability to have some flexibility and fight off new variants, new mutations. That's why so many people get COVID for a second time, whether they're vaccinated or not, if you will. So MIT and Harvard did a study. There were 112 patients in the study. They had neurological long COVID symptoms. Here's what was found. Underwhelming antibodies to COVID-19, yet overwhelming antibody response to other coronaviruses like the cold. That really speaks volumes to the idea that immune imprinting can cause neurological long COVID. So once again, interleukin-1 beta, interleukin-6, and TNF-alpha are great markers. I would also kick in interleukin-8 as a great marker for if you have a predisposition or you're a candidate for unfortunate long COVID. What is the definition of long COVID? It is a continuation or development of new symptoms 3 months after the initial SARS-CoV-2 infection, with these symptoms lasting for at least 2 months with no other explanation. So again, in a nutshell, what are we saying? Symptoms last when we're really not sure why and what for a duration of time. Now, a lot of long COVID, you'll see some upcoming studies that show that it lasted for a year. I have patients that have had long COVID for 2 years. Incidentally, long COVID was originally called long hauler syndrome, May 2020, by a Twitter expert. She said, I've been sick for 2 months. I am long hauling. So there's subphenotypes for long COVID. Subphenotype 1, the sickest patient. Subphenotype 2, patients with respiratory and sleep dysfunction and anxiety symptoms. Phenotype 3, patients that had predominantly neurological and musculoskeletal presentations. And subphenotype 4, patients with digestive symptoms. This is my wow. Estimates have long COVID costing U.S. economy $3.7 trillion and growing. When you look at the recession or the Great Recession of 2007 and 2009, $3.7 trillion, and ours is growing. Long COVID is something that's real. Long COVID is something that all the practitioners need to deal with. One of the best ways to treat long COVID is to ascertain who is susceptible to it, and testing is clearly going to be your entry-level move. UCLA researchers stated that 30% of people treated for COVID-19 develop PASC, post-acute sequela COVID-19, i.e. long COVID. Dietary inflammation is linked to worse outcomes in COVID-19. 75% of Americans are overweight or obese. The average American consumes 160 pounds of sugar per year. The average American consumes 146 pounds of gluten per year. The bottom line is the standard American diet is leading us to a very inflamed status. Fat cells are depositories for toxins. We've got to get the population thinner. We've got to get the population less inflamed. And inflammation has been seen as the culprit behind long COVID. S1 protein readily passed through the blood-brain barrier. The virus cannot cross the blood-brain barrier on its own. It needs this specific gnarly S1 protein. And what we've seen is the Omicron passes the barrier most easily. Omicron may not be the most detrimental of all their virus mutations, but it's clearly one of the worst when it comes to damage to the brain. And the blood-brain barrier is a protective mechanism, like our gut mechanism, that surrounds the brain, allows the pituitary in the brain to be exposed, because the pituitary has to have direct connection with the blood, and the blood-brain barrier is made up of a single layer epithelial cell, which I like to refer to as the door to the brain. High BMI and female sex risk factors for long COVID symptoms. How long COVID really exhausts the body? People always ask. Well, a higher level of viral RNA during infection, you're in a room with more people who are infected, you're going to have a worse infection. The presence of autoantibodies. Antibodies protect us. Autoantibodies attack us. It confuses self and foreign. And what's very unique about COVID is it makes an anti-idiotype antibody that actually attacks other antibodies. So our antibodies are attacking other antibodies, making them mirror antigens. This is a gnarly, unique virus. The reactivation of Epstein-Barr. The interesting thing about Epstein-Barr virus is that I was taking blood, and another good thing to take blood markers with. I was taking blood markers 12, 18 months ago, and I could not believe the levels of a lot of my neighbors. That's mononucleosis. That was the kissing disease. And everybody was reactivated and elevated in a lot of other viruses. So viruses lie dormant, as we all know, in our central nervous system. This particular virus, COVID, seemed in my office through objective blood serums to elevate a lot of these dormant viruses. Type 2 diabetes is also a risk factor to damage our immune function. Long COVID patients have a disrupted immune system, circulatory system. We saw a lot of microscopic blood clots and brain, again, very personal to me, my mom and her cognitive impairment. Long-term neurological outcomes of COVID-19. There was an increased risk of an array of neurological sequelae, stroke, cognitive disorders, peripheral nervous system, migraines, Guillain-Barré, musculoskeletal disorders, movement disorders, and a lot of mental health. Bottom line in this slide, really the takeaway here is the common persistent symptoms was fatigue and brain fog. So let's go through them all. It'll be fatigue, you're going to hear brain fog, and the third one you'll see is digestive upset. So those are the three that the data reveals are the most common symptomology, and no surprise in that if you damage your gut, especially from COVID-19, the gut-to-brain axis, which I call the superhighway to health, once that's dysfunctional, it is no longer the superhighway to health. Thyroid dysfunction may linger a year after severe COVID-19. So again, thyroid, interestingly enough, we could have a couple of webinars on thyroid. I'm a big proponent that thyroid, as we all know, is an autoimmune issue, a lot of which is attributed to gut and leaky gut, if you will. Biological changes of people post-COVID, disturbances in circulatory function. There's a destruction of the enzyme that is a cellular receptor for the virus. So we have an ACE2 receptor site, but we have an enzyme that makes that receptor site slippery. The COVID-19 wears it away. We have an ongoing state of inflammation in the body, abnormalities in T cell function, a high rate of autoantibody function. Mitochondrial distress and dysfunction is there. Believe me, that fatigue, almost 80%. And the gut microbiome, which may have been damaged first. There's a loss of diversity post-COVID, loss of anti-inflammatory organisms, increased leaky gut occurrence. Post-acute COVID-19 syndrome and gut dysbiosis and a leveling of good and bad bacteria. You need about 85% good bacteria. Another great test to do, can linger beyond 1 year after SARS-CoV-2 clearance or what they think is a clearance of SARS-CoV-2. Cellular danger response. This is it right here. Your mitochondria is interesting in that its origin is in bacteria. So it actually communicates and is it a cousin or a sister to your gut. Cellular danger response. Your immune system uses about 55% of energy. So let's think about when we've had a flu and you lay back and go, you know what, I'm really tired. I need to sleep it off. That's a more normal flu. When you get cellular danger response, it's because your body recognizes the tremendous strain on your energy systems, and it requires you to shut off your power packs, your ATP production, and allow your mitochondria, which has a secondary function of supporting your innate immune system, and you're just exhausted and you're out, which is very common. Now, what's interesting about that, you're shutting off your mitochondria, it's a switch. People think that you can turn it right back on. You can't. To turn your mitochondria back on, there's a cycle of cellular danger. It's 3 different switches. So we shut off like that, but to turn on, we have to have all those checkpoints. The real question is, how many people out there have been in the kind of condition and trained their mitochondria and are taking the supplementation and nutrition and exercise, et cetera, to allow their mitochondria to turn back on? The numbers are in. It's about 20% of the people weren't really fatigued afterwards. About 80% of the people are. So it's clear that we need to do more mitochondria testing if it's possible, but certainly protocols for mitochondria. Essentially, long COVID and Epstein-Barr. This study showed there was 2/3 of the people who had long COVID had a reactivation of Epstein-Barr. Now, the question remained, was it Epstein-Barr or was it COVID, or was a combination of the two that led you to being fatigued? So long COVID symptoms and impacts on numerous organs with differing pathologies. And essentially, you've got the lungs, you've got the chest, you've got the pancreas, you've got the immune system, of course, you've got the gastrointestinal area. Some more long COVID, kidneys, blood vessels, reproduction. So some of the mechanisms for long COVID pathogenesis. Number one, immune dysregulation. I think we realized that our immune systems, because most Americans weren't healthy, aren't ready to go. Microbiota dysbiosis, the unleaveling of good and bad bacteria. Most people now, or you could say there is an excessive amount of an increase in autoimmunity. You also have that immune priming that we talked about before. Blood clotting posed an issue, and dysfunctional neurological signaling. Adrienne was not nice enough to tell everybody I'm a chiropractor. So that neurological signaling is based on the vagus nerve, cranial nerve number 10. That's a whole webinar on to its own. Cranial nerve number 10 goes from the medulla oblongata, brainstem, down through the transverse colon. It is the key component in the gut to brain and the brain to gut axis. This particular neurological signaling, which really controls the parasympathetic nervous system, when the tone is decreased in the vagus nerve, you're too sympathetic, you're not able to digest well, and it leads you down a path now of failing health. Interestingly enough, studies have shown that vagus nerve tone predicted people who had COVID-19. Obviously, if the tone was up, less COVID-19 and less long COVID. If it's down, obviously that increased the incident. The studies were not only just for the tone through heart rate variability, but also they found that the vagus nerve was swollen in people who had long COVID. So we've talked about, let me get the exact time. We spent about half our webinar talking about the problem. The question is, do we have a better answer? And I say yes. So here's my long COVID protocol. Let's look at gut health, mitochondrial support, immune activation. My goal is always to manage and modulate inflammation. You want to decrease obesity. You want to take their blood sugar down. That's a great test. So testing to get someone's body fat is great. Testing for their blood sugar, testing to make sure they have an anti-inflammatory status, all good baseline tests. So here's my long COVID protocol. So essentially, you want to improve mitochondrial function and decrease fatigue. You want to make or take NAD plus. You want to take your B vitamins. You want to take your coenzyme Q10, acetyl L-carnitine, alpha lipoic acid, L-glutathione, liposomal glutathione. Glutathione is your master antioxidant. Magnesium is a great choice, zinc, selenium, and vitamin C. That will, without question, imbue your mitochondria to function well. And if you want to get immune activation in a good balance, you want to take mushrooms like reishi, maitake, lion's mane, and shiitake. What about lifestyle? What lifestyle changes do you want to make? Well, intermittent fasting. I'm a big proponent of intermittent fasting, 14 to 16 hour fasts during the day. So intermittent fasting, which is really, we're referring to as time restrictive eating, allows you to fast for that period of time. So again, 14 to 16 hours of fast leads you to about 8 to 10 hours of feed. That intermittent fasting leads to a process called autophagy, our body's own cellular expression, which allows us to break old cells down, use the debris to make new cells. So you can break old immune cells down and make new, fresh immune cells. You get rid of the raisins and make these new grapes, and now you have immunorejuvenative type cells that you have the opportunity to make immune resilience. Same thing by breaking down old mitochondria, mitophagy. Intermittent fasting is without question a very free lifestyle hack, and I recommend it for most of my patients. Keep your GI carbs down, no processed carbs. Dr. Jack LaLanne once said, if man makes it, I won't eat it. Eat good fats and amino acids, obviously fats and proteins, limit those carbs. Get sleep. It's your rejuvenative time. Get 7 to 8 hours, good amount of sleep. Exercise is also a great choice. The data's in. They're just debating, is it 4 minutes? Is it 11? Is it 19? How short a period of time, but intense short a period of time is enough to really stimulate the health. It's anywhere from 4 to 19 minutes. I'm a big proponent of low-level laser. I believe it's an electromagnetic transfer of energy. Nothing I can do that can turn on the mitochondria like that. It can really compare with to low-level laser. And of course, detox. You always want to detox. We live in a toxic world. We want to remove our toxins. Basically, if you're having trouble getting back to exercise after long COVID, the formulas that I like are LArginine and vitamin C. That combination has done well. This study speaks volumes to that. How fascinating. 2022, February, nutrition could play a key role in the management of post-COVID syndrome. We could have talked about that from day one. It's been 3 years. I'm not pro, anti anything. I just talk about what my patients need and the health of the patients. Imagine if 3 years ago, everybody, including myself, just said, I'm going to get as healthy as I could. We've had 3 years, 36 months to do so. And I think that in the next 3 years, we can mimic that and really get the patient population healthy. A third of long COVID patients suffer persistent smell loss. So one of the most common and probably the thing that patients dislike the most was the loss of sense of smell. So here's a very simple, easy protocol. Take essential oil or a food that has an odor, use that as a baseline under somebody's nose. Here's your nutritional protocol, 30 days, about 85% efficiency, 600 milligrams alpha-lipoic acid, 60 milligrams of zinc. Works like a champ every time. You want to add some omega-3s to that? I'm your huckleberry, as I like to say. Loss of taste protocol. The taste receptors are much more. But the question people always ask is, why did I lose the sense of smell? Well, it's an airborne virus going in your nose, affecting what we call your olfactory nerves, and they became swollen. For the loss of taste protocol, glutamine, repair epithelium, NAC, 500 milligrams, astragalus, 1 gram, glutathione, the master antioxidant, 1 gram or 1 molecule of vitamin C, I should say, ameliorates 3 free radicals. 1 molecule of vitamin E ameliorates 5 free radicals. 1 molecule of L-glutathione, when absorbed into the cell, can ameliorate up to 1 million free radicals. That's why it's called the captain of the ship, or the master antioxidant. Glutathione inhibits TGF-beta. Omega-3 fatty acids decrease interleukin-6, which is your critical. If you had to test one thing, interleukin-6 is without question the most dynamic test for COVID and or inflammation in reference to COVID. Curcumin, of course, decreases interleukin-6. The famed JFK once said, the time to repair the roof is when the sun is shining. If I could extrapolate, I would say that he's trying to tell me, hey, Rob, be proactive with your health. Don't be reactive. So immune support versus immune rejuvenation, the basic premise is you don't want to support an imbalanced immune system. You want to make an immune system that is rejuvenative, that has immune resilience. I know I've said this before, and then you want to support that balanced immune system. You don't want to support a seesaw like this. You want to support a seesaw and raise its levels. Very interesting. People say, well, what do I have to do to balance the innate and the adaptive immune system? You don't really have to take a lot. Vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin D, and zinc are both pleiotropic. They work in both immune systems and they balance. The only difference is omega-3 fatty acids have shown to be fabulous for the innate immune system, and a fractionated conversion of an omega-3 pro-resolving mediators are great for the adaptive immunity. They allow for the resolution of inflammation. They allow for the homeostasis and the resolution of inflammation. That said, all you need is a multivitamin or multi-mineral, omega-3 and a pro-resolving mediators, and you should have a robust immune system. I broke it down a little bit more. I got a little bit more detailed and granular. Immune support supplements, vitamin C, zinc, mixed mushroom complex, vitamin D3 with K2, probiotics, NAC, liposomal glutathione, selenium, omega-3 fatty acids, elderberry, and yes, elderberry, and vitamin A. If someone has to take a vaccine, you want to support their immune system and allow them for optimum outcomes, multivitamin, multimineral, vitamin D3 with K2, quercetin, omega-3 fatty acids, branched-chain amino acids or glutamine, NAC, glutathione, probiotics. That's prior to a COVID-19 vaccine. You want to do this for a minimum of a month prior to the shot. For a month after the shot, here is my post-vaccine support: turmeric, resveratrol, ginger, boswellia, white willow bark extract, detox formula, sulforaphane, omega-3 fatty acids, D3 with K2, multivitamin, multimineral. The wonderful, famous Omicron Protocol. Yes, and we're still dealing with whatever number it is of Omicron. Here you go. Vitamin D3, 5,000 with K2, melatonin, astaxanthin, curcumin, quercetin, zinc, NAC, those pro-resolving mediators. I mean, for me, pro-resolving mediators are a conversation all to their own. They were found in 2015 by Dr. Charles Sirhan at Harvard. I don't know why they haven't caught fire, no pun intended. They put the fire out. Once again, they allow for the resolution of inflammation. They work synergistically with omega-3 fatty acids. Here's a couple of great probiotics that have shown, data revealed, they're great with Omicron: L-rhamnosus, L-plantarum. We've got resveratrol and NAD+. Vitamin D, fascinating vitamin D. You know, I personally would have been giving a lot of vitamin D pills to everybody. I was giving out literally free vitamin D over the last 3 years. The studies show, 7 different studies, that if you have a vitamin D level of 50 or more, statistical zeros of people dying vaccinated or unvaccinated. So clearly, what kind of test? You should be taking a vitamin D test without question. So why is vitamin D so potent? Well, how does it positively affect the cytokine storm? Vitamin D stimulates interleukin-10, which is one of the anti-inflammatory interleukins. That said, it stimulates interleukin-10. Interleukin-10 flicks switches. I love things that turn health switches on and turn off inflammatory switches. So by stimulating interleukin-10, we shut off pro-inflammatory switches like TNF-alpha, INF-gamma, interleukin-6, and IL-beta. So it balances your immune system and doesn't allow the cytokine storm to go crazy. What about melatonin? It is not just a sleep supplement as far as I'm concerned. Melatonin is a multi-purposed nutrient. I believe melatonin will probably be the new vitamin D, in that, just like vitamin D, melatonin has a swath of health promoting properties that lead to a bunch of health promoting functions, in that it decreases the cytokine storm. It also aids in sleep. It's also anti-inflammatory, and it also decreases oxidative stress. I'm not saying melatonin before vitamin D. I'm just saying melatonin may be the new find, if you will. Hair shedding. I can't tell you how many men and women have come in and said, my hair's falling out post-COVID. What do I do? So this is sort of a hair, skin, and nails protocol. Vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin E, vitamin D, biotin, pantothenic acid, zinc, collagen, and a strong amino acid blend. So I like to look at the dominoes falling down, like what stimulated the cascade of what's going on. So for me, I believe the problem to the cascade was not an adherence to a healthy lifestyle. In addition to that, I think it's people's gut health was a problem. So number one, let's go through a gut protocol. I have a 7R action plan that I like to share with everybody. Number one, reset. Everybody needs to reset their lifestyle and diet, just like this slide said. Diet, lifestyle, mindset. Health is wealth. That's a great way to reset your mindset. What kind of diet? Well, every diet should be individualized and personalized for the individual. I'm a believer in something called the N of 1. The N of 1 is you. You're going to be different than me. But here's some generals that I'd like to give to everybody, and you'll see them repeated again. GPS, no gluten, no processed food, no sugar. DNA, no dairy, no nicotine, no artificial sweeteners. Vegetable oils are not vegetables, they're seed oils. They are inflammatory. They are commonly used in most restaurants outside. Be careful. Repeat after me. I am allergic to vegetable oils, Mr. and Mrs. Restaurant. I don't want them in my dish. I'd much rather have avocado oil, ghee, clarified butter, coconut oil, macadamia nut, extra virgin olive oil. That's the reset. The remove for a gut health is critical in that that's where you're going to remove food sensitivities, food allergies, and food intolerances. And that's where your testing comes in. That's your baseline with tests. That's when I go to town and I take these out. Just because you have a food sensitivity does not mean you have to remove that food for perpetuity. Once you go through the program, more than 2/3 of the foods you'll be able to fit back in. The remove what? Remove bacteria, the bad bacteria, remove the fungi, remove the pathogens from your gut. You'll do so with berberine, oregano oil, garlic. You'll use a biofilm buster. In addition to that, you'll use something called serum bovine immunoglobulin, which is the mop of the gut. It takes out, and with receptor sites, takes out all these bad guys, removes them and cleans them out. Replace what? Now you're on to the third R. Replace with stomach acid and digestive enzymes, pancreatic enzymes, and increase bile flow. That's critical. Then you go to rejuvenate. You're going to use a plethora of nutrients that both have a pleiotropic effect of healing and sealing the gut lining and allowing for anti-inflammation in the microenvironment in the gut. Reinoculate. Reinoculate with what? Reinoculate with pre and probiotics. A prebiotic, that fiber, is probably as important, if not more important, than the probiotic. And that probiotic, when it dies, and it has a duration of time, they only live about 28 to 32 days. They have a residue that they leave, and that's called a postbiotic. Hopefully the postbiotic that you generate from the good fiber is butyric acid. So butyrate is the gold medal winner that has a panacea of health promoting properties. Then after you regenerate and you reinoculate, then you're going to retest. That's when you can retest all those food issues and inflammatory issues, and then you can reintroduce those foods. Lastly, the seventh R is retain. Retain your health. Good diet, good lifestyle, good minds. And if you wanted to have some supplements to help you with that, multivitamin, multimineral, vitamin D3 with K2, omega-3 fatty acids, pre and probiotics, and a good dynamic fruits and greens drink. So let's get into the lifestyle. Adherence to healthy lifestyle prior to infection decreases the risk of post-COVID. Check out the numbers though. The adherence to the healthy lifestyle decreased the risk of post-COVID, a 50% decrease. So I treat a lot of people post-COVID and I ask them, how's your lifestyle? And we go through it. And the problem is they're not adhering to a good lifestyle. People think it's hard. People think that healthy means it doesn't taste good. People don't like to change as much. So you have to offer them options and recipes and the like. Maintaining healthy weight and taking adequate sleep confer greater benefit from post-COVID-19 prevention. So let's get into controlling your host. Avoid certain foods. Kind of did a little bit of pontification, if you will, before. But those certain foods, once again, GPS, no gluten, no processed food, no sugar, DNA, no dairy, no nicotine, no artificial sweeteners, no deep fried foods, no vegetable oils. Follow an anti-inflammatory diet. Food, good food, is information for your body. Bad food is inflammation for your body. Control your glycemic load and your glycemic index. Great tests. For me, one of the first things I look at is I look at fasting glucose, I look at hemoglobin A1C, I look at HOMA-IR, my blood labs. Detect or avoid food sensitivities. Why do I test for food sensitivities? Because I believe they're one of the hidden causes for inflammation. It takes up to 72 hours from the time of ingestion of a food sensitivity till you see symptomology. So there's no way the patient or the doctor really knows without testing. Environmental overload is another great thing to avoid. So quickly, make clean eating a priority. Organic food, wild smash fish, salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, herring. A plant-based, plant-forward diet is a great choice. Fruits and vegetables, grass-fed meats, high fiber, nuts and seeds, bone broth, go for it. You want a snack? Organic dark chocolate. Herbs like ginger and turmeric. Make sure you have an appropriate fluid intake. If you're going to drink coffee, and I am a coffee guy, got mine right here. You want organic coffee? Coffee is the third most sprayed item in America today, cotton and tobacco 1 and 2. So you want organic coffee to avoid those pesticides. We talked about the oils before. And of course, always add and douse with omega-3 fatty acids and extra virgin olive oil. Consider a time-restrictive eating. You get the benefits of intermittent fasting, sufficient sleep. Your brain detoxes when you sleep. It shrinks to 40% of its size, squeezes out all of metabolic waste. Sleep is a critical lifestyle hack. Exercise, as we said before, let's all get moving together. I'm a chiropractor, so maybe I'm prejudiced, but I do believe chiropractic care is a great advent and addition to anybody's health armamentarium. Low-level laser, electromagnetic transfer of energy, modify your stress. Even though this was going crazy, I didn't lose it. Got to modify your stress, support, balance, allow your immune system to be new, rejuvenative. The immune system you have today is not the immune system you have to play with tomorrow. And once again, lead a proactive, healthy lifestyle, which can help reduce the risk and prevent it. Don't be reactive in your lifestyle. So Adrian was nice enough. He's a shameless plug. Immune Reboot, it was a bestseller. It's on Amazon. You can go to immunereboot.com. I'm going to give away a few free books. I really appreciate your time. I always like to end with a quote. Your profession is not what brings home your weekly paycheck. Your profession is what put you here on earth to do with such passion and such intensity that it becomes spiritual and calling. I love what I do. My dad gave me one bit of advice. You know what he said when I was a little kid? He said, Dad, I don't know what I want to do. Do I want to be an astronaut? I want to be a rock star. Do I want to be an NFL quarterback? And he said to me, whatever you do what you love. You'll never have a job and you'll have a happy life. And I can tell you that one piece of advice resonates every day. I love what I do. So if you have any questions, you want to have a conversation, even to disagree with some of the things I said, there's all my contacts. Follow me on social media. Let's get connected. Let's talk. I see Adrian's there, and I made it with enough time for some questions.
Dr. Silverman, thank you so much. You're always one of my favorite practitioners and presenters for a reason. I think everybody in the audience just saw exactly why. So we had a ton of questions that came through. So we'll try and get through as many as we can. If you do have any questions, use that Q&A button. And if we can get to it, we can. I know Dr. Silverman does have a hard stop. So let's just jump right into it and we can go chronologically. So the first question that we had is, what receptors are blocked by the EGCG?
Great question. And what I read was it actually blocks the docking at the ACE2 receptor site so the spike protein could not come in. Remember, this is a triple spike. The other ones were single spikes. So it actually helped prevent the blocking. That's what IgG is supposed to do, protect the blocking. I used to say, block the docking of these spiked proteins. Great question. So imagine EGCG with a good IgG. And remember, you got to look at that immune imprinting where we're taking a picture and it's the same picture. We're taking a picture of somebody in the family, but we're now getting attacked by the cousin. And that explains a lot of what's going on.
Perfect. And the next question is actually about the spike protein. So curious about spike protein toxicity post-COVID infection impacting the thyroid, potentially prompting Hashimoto's out of remission.
You know what? I haven't done a ton of studies on that, but without question, I can see it. So the way I look at it, and I have my prism, if you will, sometimes even I'm myopic, and I try not to be. Having said all that, I do think that that's conceivable. We're seeing a lot, and there was a slide in there, and I know Adrian's going to share the slides. There is information that says the S1 protein caused reactivity, and thyroid was one of the things that was implicated.
Great. What are the tests that you would recommend to review a patient's mitochondrial health?
That's a great question. I would do a VO2 max. That would be my number one thing. There is no serum test that I know of off the top of my head, but since we're talking about serums test, and this is Rupa Health, let's go for it.
Let's go.
I would use right. Go here. I'm gonna pop the bottle, and out comes the genie. Here we go. 3 wishes. Wish number 1, KBMO, and I'll tell you why. And that doesn't mean I wouldn't use all of everything on Rupa Health, but I'll give you my 3 fabs. Number 1. KBMO, I would do the Fit 176 and the gut barrier panel. So you'll get your food sensitivities, your emulsifiers, your additives, and you need a gut barrier panel, at least a gut barrier panel to see if you have leaky gut. Other companies have great tests also. Number two, believe it or not, I would use Boston Heart because I want to find out the deleterious damage that occurred conceivably to the change in cholesterol and blood sugars. And number three, any one of your labs that do a full composite serum test. Most of the serum tests that I see docs order, not necessarily in the functional medicine world, but in the other world, as you know, for instance, I had a patient come in yesterday. Yeah, my cholesterol, HDL, LDL, and total cholesterol. Now, I wish I had the camera. Everybody's shaking their head. So any one of the labs that does a full composite, that would be my genie wish to start. And if you needed to take it to the next step, any of the companies that would do a poop test so you can get an understanding of what went in and obviously what's coming out.
Absolutely. So we've got a vagus nerve question coming up. How do you test to see if the vagus nerve is swollen? And if so, what can we do to tone it or shift to parasympathetic?
Yeah, vagus nerve is great. They were testing the vagus nerve. I think they were using a Doppler. It wasn't in my office, but my vagus nerve assessment isn't just symptomology, it's heart rate variability. Now, if you want to use what I have, an Oura ring, I do not own stock in an Oura ring, I'm just showing it. You can do that. There's other companies, there's other devices that will test the vagus nerve tone. I use a low-level laser. I have a patented move that I do over the vagus nerve. You can also stimulate the vagus nerve through the auricular portion. Vagus nerve is interesting in that increasing the tone not only decreases your incidence of long COVID, but SIBO and leaky gut. And there is a vagus nerve nutritional protocol. I'll share it with you. Omega-3 fatty acids, L-citrulline, add your fiber, get some sleep, intermittent fast.
Perfect. And speaking of intermittent fasting, hoping you could shed a little bit of light on your experience with intermittent fasting, maybe not personally, but how long should folks intermittent fast for? 30 days? And is it different between men versus women?
Oh, we have to do a webinar on the women. I mean, that is like, so I'm 14 and 10. I fast for 14 and I eat for 10. A lot of people do 16 and 8. Mm-hmm. I don't like them anymore, and I'll tell you why. I know the autophagy goes up, but I don't know people who can live in a 4 to 6 hour eat frame for durations of time. At the 13th hour, autophagy kicks in, and it really spikes up at the 16th and 17th hour. So I do 14 and 10 because I'm able to be consistent. Now, remember, Adrian's in a different zone. He's in Pacific. I'm in Eastern. We sometimes cross paths and we wave to each other in the middle of the air. Now, so for me, 14 and 10, if I was sedentary in my place and I wasn't traveling every weekend, 16 and 8. Women, let me tease you with this. Women are vastly different than men, and I mean that in all seriousness. That progesterone hormone does wonders to them. You cannot intermittent fast a woman hard during that progesterone phase, i.e. especially day 21 to 28 in a classic cycle, because you will stress them, and that PMS, that old stuff, it is just not being fair to their hormonal cycle. So there's a vast difference, if I may say, I know we're going to stop in a minute or two, a vast difference in how you would treat a woman with keto and treat a woman with intermittent fasting, something to put down and table for another day.
I think we just might have to, as an intermittent fasting guy myself, 14 and 10 as well. I would love to learn a little bit more. And it sounds like the people in
I'm pumped. I'm ready. We will talk in a bit.
Absolutely. Again. Yeah, I'm sure I'll give you a call right after this. But, I know we are at the time. You have so many engagements. It's a busy man that you are. I just want to say thank you so much, Dr. Silverman. You see his socials up on the screen. Please shoot him a follow, engage with him. One of my favorite practitioners for a reason. Do you have any final thoughts before we let you go?
Absolutely. Remember, health is wealth, everybody. And if I can motivate you to do one thing for yourself, it's a success today. And hopefully that one thing you have will resonate to everybody else. You know, what you do for yourself dies with you. What you do for others lives for immortality.
I love it. Dr. Silverman, thank you again so much. Looking forward to continuing to work on these fun presentations along with you. With that, folks, I'm going to go ahead and do a quick transition and show you a little bit about Rupa Health. I know Dr. Silverman is a huge proponent of testing, right? You don't know what you don't know. And so it all starts with understanding your levels. And so I'm going to transition and show you exactly how to order some of those tests that Dr. Silverman was speaking about and how we can make your life a bit easier here at Rupa Health. For those of you who don't know me and may have joined late, my name is Adrian Martinez. I'm the head of practitioner partnerships here at Rupa Health. And so there's a reason why we host these presentations every single week. Rupa Health is a functional medicine lab platform designed to alleviate a lot of the pain points that can be associated with lab testing, right? Everything from education, which you just saw, to managing and ordering all your lab tests, handling the patient experience. We want to be an all-in-one platform that will make your life as a practitioner smoother so you can help get that time back, build your business, play more golf, whatever it is that you want to do with that time back is up to you. But let's just jump right into it. Who is Rupa Health and what do we do? Beyond being a functional medicine lab platform, we are a space that combines over 30 different labs and over 3,000 different tests all in one spot. So no longer do you have to set up separate accounts for all the labs you want to work with. You have one single sign-on and you have access to everything all in one place. Beyond that, we will handle the patient experience end to end. So as soon as you place that order on Rupa, we can effectively take it from there by handling patient support, managing and coordinating phlebotomies, handling any specimen issues, really you name it. That's what we're here for, to make your life a bit easier, as well as you just saw, education as well. So just to give you an idea of how simple it is to order a test on Rupa Health, this is the dashboard that you're seeing here. And to place an order on our platform, all you need is the patient's first name, last name, and email address. We'll collect everything else directly from the patient. So it simplifies and streamlines things on your end, as well as ensures the accuracy of the patient's information. From there, this is the order screen. You'll see that you can set up custom bundles, which are sets of tests and combinations of tests from any lab that we want to work with. And down below, you can also create a favorites list. So individual tests that you're commonly ordering, you can go ahead and put a heart next to it. And so that way, when I want to order that test from KBMO that Dr. Silverman was mentioning a moment ago, the FITS 176, as well as maybe that gut barrier panel. But let's say that I also want to do a GI and I also want to run a hormones test. I don't have to go to each individual lab to order these tests. I have them right here on Rupa. And if I'm looking for a specific test from any one of the 30 plus labs that we work with, it's right down below. And if that's it, y'all, all I'm doing is clicking send a patient. So I'm able to order from over 3,000 different tests. And as you saw, place that order for my patient within literally seconds. Traditionally, this would take 10, 15 minutes to go ahead and do on your end, right? So just getting that precious time back is so important for you and your business. From there, let's talk about how our pricing works. Rupa Health is free to sign up for. So you can create an account on rupahealth.com and sign up within minutes. You don't need to be a licensed practitioner. So if your license type does limit your ability to order this test directly, you can sign up for our physician services program, which will go ahead and partner you with a licensed practitioner to order those tests for your patients. We also operate within 47 of the 50 states. So unfortunately, if you are in New York, like Dr. Silverman, New York, New Jersey, or Rhode Island, we can't work with patients there yet, but it is something that we are working on. Now, we offer the wholesale practitioner price. So what that means is that the same price that you would get having an account directly with the labs, those are the same prices that we offer here at Rupa, not only to you, but also to your patients. So if you are ordering this Dutch test, we're potentially saving your patients $250. Right? So huge potential cost savings. The way that we generate our revenue is very straightforward. We charge a 7% processing and ordering fee on each order. You'll see it broken down transparently for both you and your patients, depending on who's paying for the order. And that's it. So if you're having us bill your patient directly, then the patient will be the one paying this 7%. In that scenario, for you as a practitioner, Rupa would be free. The only time you would ever pay anything to Rupa Health is if you decide to pay for the cost. You'll go ahead and click that button here, add your payment information. You can go ahead and save that into our systems. You don't have to add it every single time. And then you will manage billing separately with the patient. So the opportunity there is for in case you want to do a program with your patient where they're paying everything up front, or just simply have a different billing cycle with your patients. We do provide you the opportunity to pay for everything yourself. Otherwise, we can handle billing with your patient. One more thing off your plate that you don't have to handle. Again, giving you a bit more time back. And as soon as you press send on that order, we will go ahead and, as I mentioned before, take it from there. So we'll reach out to your patient. We'll drop ship the kits to your patients. If you do prefer to stock kits in office, let me know and we can have a more expanded conversation on that. We'll send over the instructions and FAQs and videos on how to take the test. If your patient does require any support, they reach out to our team. We'll facilitate everything for you, even helping coordinate phlebotomies. And if something does happen with the specimen that requires recollection, we can go ahead and handle that as well. Traditionally, again, things that would require you and your staff, if you have staff, to manage, So we're giving you that time back, as well as providing you with a more efficient process. We'll follow up with your patient. Our compliance rates are well above 85%, and then you're notified via email as they come in. So here's what those communications look like. We'll reach out to the patient. I apologize if this is small. I'll send this out as well. We'll let them know these tests have been ordered for you. A really important component to Rupa Health is not only can we accept credit or debit for these orders, but we can also accept HSA, FSA, and we can even set up a 3-month interest-free payment plan with your patients. So we're providing more opportunities for your patients to be able to afford these oftentimes very expensive tests. While understanding that cost can be a prohibiting factor when ordering these tests, we want to give the opportunities to your patients to be able to pay for these very important tests to understand their numbers. From there, we'll collect all the necessary information to complete that order. And then from there, we'll go ahead and drop ship the kits to your patients. If you decide to pay for the tests yourself, nothing changes with the patient experience. The only difference here is that we're not going to collect any billing information from your patient. And so thus, we're not going to show any costs associated to the tests. They'll still know what tests have been ordered, but since we're not billing the patient directly, we're not going to show any costs. That's completely between you and your patients. From there, we'll send over instructions that look very similar to this. So outlining instructions for every one of the tests that they ordered, how to fill out their requisition forms, and of course, scheduling that phlebotomy. We can go ahead and send over recommendations to your patient based on the lab that they're working with. But if you yourself are lucky enough to have a preferred phlebotomist and somewhere that you want to send your patient to, including in your own office, we can send that information to your patients. Again, if they do have any questions, they'll simply respond to any one of the communications that we are sending to them. And you'll notice on the right-hand side are instructions. Our instructions are very comprehensive, but I think what's more important about the instructions that we're sending to your patients is that they're very user-friendly. They can click through to different sections. And again, they do any questions, they'll just come to us. We'll follow up, and then you're notified as each individual result comes in. What's amazing about this, again, is that you can just hop right back into your dashboard and view all of the orders right in one system. We do integrate with a handful of EHRs as well. So if you do work with one of our EHR partners, let me know and we can go ahead and see if that integration is available for you, but those results will flow right into the patient file for you. And this is how you're tracking all your orders. You can filter, you can see all the draft orders, all your in progress orders. And once your results are in, you're just able to hop right in here and view all of the results. So you'll notice that 2 of the 3 results are in for this order. I can download the results. I can send them to my patient. Additionally, I can even schedule a clinical consultation. So if I do require some assistance interpreting these results, I can schedule time with a clinician from the lab that I'm ordering these tests from. This won't be with somebody from Rupa. It will be with a clinician from the lab that you're working with. And so you have access to everything that you would have should you be working directly with the labs, but all in one place, making your life a bit easier, right? And then you can mark that as reviewed once you've had the chance to review that with your patients. A really cool function of Rupa Health as well is that we can even create result summaries. So once those results are in, our system will be able to allow you to create a patient-facing PDF that will break down all of the biomarkers, all of the next steps, as well as creating treatment plans. And so what's really great about this, and this is just very much a view 1, there's an amazing future for this, but we're providing you the tools to create customer-facing and patient-facing treatment plans all in one system by aggregating your results through our process or through our system. Pretty cool. I love technology, and this is just making life so much easier, not only for practitioners, but for patients and really the whole ecosystem. So just to recap, y'all, all-in-one solution for all of your labs, all of your patients' support. But as I mentioned a moment ago, more than just labs, we do a lot of education. So you're all a part of Rupa University, but you can hop in here and learn about labs. You can see the upcoming boot camps that we have. Boot camps are essentially 6-week live classes that we're doing that we partner. You can see the one coming up with Dr. Jeffrey Bland. We have another Lyme class coming up April 17th. These are the paid options that we have with Rupa Health, where you're going to be able to join these sessions on a weekly basis. They're 6 weeks, and learn and get more of a deep dive into the different labs and how to interpret and implement them within your clinic, as well as you can see all the upcoming free classes that we have. Beyond that, you can hop in here. You have compare tests, so you can see what tests that we have. If I want to see all the food sensitivity tests, hormone tests, mycotox tests, you name it, right? We're in a very unique position here at Rupa to be partnered with over 30 different labs, and understanding that 3,000 different tests can be a bit overwhelming. So where do you even start? Tools like this allow you to be able to see what works best within your practice by comparing just the raw data that's available. And of course, we have all of our live classes recorded. Be sure to check them out. There's a really, really great list of not only live classes, but also magazine articles. We have a boot camp hosted by the wonderful Dr. Carrie Jones. So again, just beyond somewhere where you can come and order your tests. We want to be a all-in-one platform where you can come and not only order your tests, but learn about the tests and how to grow your practice and implement them. So with that, y'all, my name is Adrian Martinez. If you have any questions, reach out to me. I'll put my contact actually up here in a moment. But my name is Adrian Martinez. It's just adrian@rupahealth.com. Let me get that up here. There you go. Here's all my contacts. So I'm going to see if there's any questions that came in. Are there payment plans for patients? There are payment plans for patients. Great question. So we can actually set up a 3-month interest-free payment plan for your patients. Really amazing. We love being able to have the opportunity to offer these different payment opportunities to the patients. Is there an additional fee for clinician support? There is not. So clinical support is completely covered, right? I think that's really what ties into just the cost of using Rupa Health. Free account to sign up for. That 7% processing and ordering fee isn't just we're taking that money and letting you go on your own. We want to ensure that not only the patients have full support, but there's additional clinician support as well, all included in that. Love the questions. Great. Well, I don't see any more questions coming through the chat. I appreciate you all so much for joining this afternoon. Again, my name is Adrian. I look forward to seeing you on future live classes along with me. I'm the host every single week, and I genuinely do appreciate you all joining for this afternoon. And have a great rest of your Wednesday, y'all. Take care.